What up, y'all? Flash Speaks back, another video. I've been trying to wait it out, today is the day, though. Still haven't heard anything yet about Nick Sirianni. It's a little after 2 o'clock right now when I'm recording this. This is the day where Nick Sirianni meet with Jeffrey Lurie. It sounds like he's doing a similar thing to what he did with Doug Peterson after his 4-win season, where Doug Peterson, I guess, was told by Jeffrey Lurie, look, what we have right now is a disaster, obviously. How do you plan to fix it? Real simple, and I think he is willing to listen to his plan. And I don't know when this meeting started, and I don't know how long it's going to be. I don't know if it's in person. I don't know if it's maybe via Skype or something like that, because of we have some harsh weather here today. I don't know, but I haven't heard anything yet. So maybe the meeting is going on right now as we speak. Maybe Jeffrey Lurie, maybe it's over with and Jeffrey Lurie is pontificating or debating what he's going to do. I don't know. So all we can do is kind of wait. But you surfing the web, I guess it's old school, right? But looking online and seeing different comments from Eagle fans, man, weighing in on what they think the Eagles should do and what they're concerned with and so on. I tell you this, man. For me, I'm kind of an advocate for moving on from Nick Sirianni. Reason being, like, I'm not real big on just blaming coordinators and not the head coach, because the head coach is the guy that is over the coordinators. And when the coordinators, don't fail, when the coordinators don't succeed, it's the job of the head coach to step in and try to correct things. I feel like Nick Sirianni has been unable to do that. And then when you look in on some of the information that's being leaked, and then if you couple that with some of what logic tells you must have been, it kind of looks like Nick Sirianni may have had, even by his own admission, more control than you and I would think. I'm hearing that Denard Wilson, who was defensive backs coach for the Eagles last season, applied for the job. And what I was surprised to hear was it sounds like Nick Sirianni may have actually had the freedom to say yay or nay on him. I've kind of always assumed that he actually wasn't able to make those decisions, that it was something that was done by Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman. New information is making it sound like maybe I could have been wrong about that. Maybe Nick Sirianni did have the hand in that. Now, the problem is, you see, Denard Wilson last year was a very, very good defensive backs coach if you look at the secondary in terms of the numbers the secondary put up. You're talking about a secondary that was like top 3 against the pass last year. The struggle last year was more so against the run, whereas this year was the complete opposite, where the team was slightly better against the run, or much better against the run than they were against the pass. Actually, at one point in the year, for a large portion of the season, the Philadelphia Eagles this year, that horse defense we had, were number 1 against the run, but we're always towards the bottom against the pass. So Denard Wilson's departure was probably very, very much key in that, that drop off. I mean, it's also possible that the players like C.J. Gardner-Johnson not being there had some effect. I'm sure it did. James Bradbury just completely fallen off of a cliff. I mean, the guy just couldn't do anything right. Whether it's tackling, whether it's sticking, whether it's playing zone, whether it's playing man. It's like he couldn't do anything this year. I'm sure that played a part in it. Yet and still, the decisions to not bench him, to have him out there after it has been clearly established that he's not good right now, were horrible decisions on the part of whoever had the call. Now, if that's Nick Sirianni, this is inexcusable. All right, if it's on the part of Sean Desai or Matt Patricia or whoever, it's inexcusable still. The only way they could justify it is if it is coming from the top, which is Howie Roseman or Jeffrey Lurie, and they're saying, no, this man is going to play simply because we're paying him. If that sort of thing is happening, then you can't really blame the coaches. Their hands are tied, right? That you have an ownership that doesn't care about winning if that's the case. I don't know what actually went on with that. I just know him being out there was inexcusably bad error on the part of whoever was making the decision there. I know me, if I'm a head coach, I'm going to oppose the owner and make sure I win, right? Because I'd rather deal with an owner having had won a game over dealing with the owner having had lost. So that way, if the owner does fire me, I'm going to be fired as a winner who just wasn't listening to idiotic directives. That's the way I would go out, but that's just me. Whereas, I'm just going to follow it, in illogical directives and loser type directives and still be fired anyway, because that's the way it works. So, if Nick Sirianni, in fact, was the guy who decided, no, I don't want to go with Denard Wilson, because Denard Wilson has went on to coach with the Ravens, and you know what the Ravens defense looks like. You're talking about the top 3 or 5 defense right now, if not the best defense in the league. You see how they're looking. See what they did to Washington, to the 49ers versus what we did to the 49ers, or what the 49ers did to us, rather. So if that was Nick Sirianni's call, that's not going to look good in that interview. That's not going to look good at all when Jeffrey Lurie is asking him, why didn't you hire Denard? So when he's asking him that, I don't know how he's going to answer that one and sound, and that'd be a good answer. So that's one thing. The other issues. The offense. What happened there? Is Nick really the guy that's in control of the offense? Is the offense actually his offense? Or is it some directives coming from up top? All these things are going to determine his fate here, right? Because on one hand, if they decide to go with Nick Sirianni, I'm going to be convinced that it's because he was running an offense that was never his anyway. That he's being told from the top, no, this is the offense we're going to run because this is the offense that helped us win the Super Bowl in 2017. And what they miscalculated was the fact that offenses like these, especially gimmicky offenses that are college-based offenses, they work initially because the NFL isn't caught up to them, but once the NFL is caught up to them, they're exposed. Which is what the offense looked like this year. It looked like it was completely exposed. Even got to the point where I think people figured out the tush push. When you look at what had happened in that last game. And I think Jonathan Gannon put people on to how to stop it. And then you look at, we actually got stopped by Tampa Bay. Not good. Can't even do that right. So it seems like the whole thing was figured out. So who's to blame for that? Is this really just purely a Brian Johnson offense that he's unable to run as effectively like Shane Steichen did? Is it all just a matter of losing Shane Steichen? Or is it that the offense was figured out by the NFL? Because remember, that was put out there that this would be the season. Many prognosticators put that out there. What happens when the NFL catches up to what you're doing? Who's responsible for lack of blitz beaters in the offense? Is that just Brian Johnson? Is that the top, guy, the top brass? Or is that Nick Sirianni? You see, for me personally, whatever way you look at it falls on Nick Sirianni because he's supposed to be the football guy. He's supposed to know more than everyone there. And if he doesn't, he shouldn't have a job. He should know how to beat zero blitzes. He should know how to beat any of those blitzes they were sending. Zone blitzes, whatever. You're a head coach playing football. You should know how to do that. Who's responsible for the Philadelphia Eagles being unable to execute a screen pass, whether it's a wide receiver screen? Who's responsible for the Eagles not using running backs in the screen game as much as they probably should, and using tight ends and wide receivers and having players like Devontae Smith be the lead blocker on these plays, which bothers a lot of people? Who's responsible for that? Ultimately, if it's Nick Sirianni, then that should not look good during your interview. But I'm telling you, if they keep him, I'm going to be convinced that they're keeping him only because they know deep down that these issues were not his issues, that he was just following directives. And they are pleased with him because he's just merely serving as a puppet and following what their directives are. And that's all they're looking for in a coach. I'll be convinced that's the case if you keep Nick Sirianni, because to me, it's clearly that's what he is. You're looking at a guy that when he first came to the Philadelphia Eagles, was a play caller initially. The team goes 2-5. He's calling a very unbalanced game, hardly ever running the football. He's doing all RPOs, all passes, and it was horrible. Right? Now, there were rumors that wasn't really his offense, And what happens is the quarterback starts looking bad. People were saying that Jaylen Herz doesn't know how to run an NFL offense. That Nick Sirianni has some complicated offense somewhere that Jaylen Herz isn't able to grasp. So because of that, they're dumbing things down and running an RPO scheme. Now, I wasn't stupid enough to buy that. The reason why is because I understand this team. I follow this team closely. The Philadelphia Eagles went out and hired Chip Kelly because they saw something in what he was doing that they did like. They were actually going to allow this guy to trade Fletcher Cox and a number of number one picks for Marcus Mariota, which would have been a disaster. I'm glad that didn't happen. But the Philadelphia Eagles were willing to allow those things to go. There was an "in Chip we trust" message going on at one time. Chip Kelly was the one who was running this RPO stuff, hurry up RPO stuff. Okay? Now, the blessing in disguise was that Nick Foles was able to run it effectively. Philadelphia Eagles won a Super Bowl running that particular offense. And I think they foolishly believed it was an offense that the NFL didn't have figured out, and it was an answer to knowing when to run, when to pass, based off of reading the defense and so on. And that was part of the reason why they went and got Jaylen Herz in the first place. There were rumors that Carson Wentz, because remember, after they won the 2017 Super Bowl, I believe that ownership and general manager or president of football operations wanted to install this as the Eagles offense because they won a Super Bowl with it, without foolishly recognizing the fact that a big part of why the team caught lightning in a bottle, in my opinion, with Nick Foles and destroyed everybody in the playoffs that year was because, number one, the NFL did not know what the Eagles were doing. Because when teams are preparing for you, they're going to look up what you were doing in the regular season. And in the regular season, you had Carson Wentz as the quarterback who was running a completely different system. So if you go into the playoffs, you run a system completely different from what you were doing previously. They're unprepared for you. This is why they destroyed both the Vikings and destroyed the New England Patriots defenses in the Super Bowl because teams weren't caught up to them. Okay? But then there were rumors, in 2018 when Carson Wentz comes back, that Carson Wentz didn't want to run that offense. He used to say, no, that's that Nick Foles stuff. Right? He wanted to run what he was running. I believe this caused a friction between Carson Wentz and the owners. And in my opinion, that's when everything fell apart. This is when they didn't mind getting rid of him. And I believe it was at this time, especially after Carson Wentz got hurt in the playoffs, the first time he made it to the playoffs, healthily, and he got hurt. I believe that that's when they went searching for the perfect quarterback to run an RPO system that they fell in love with because Nick Foles was able to win a Super Bowl with it. And this led them to Jaylen Herz, talking to Lincoln Riley, who told them that, hey, this is the best guy. This guy ran that offense better than Baker, ran it better than Kyler. Okay? So that's why they went and got Jaylen Herz. Okay? They said, all right, we're going to have him around. If Carson continues the way he's going, right? And then they probably didn't do all they could to help Carson as much as they could, right? And Carson inevitably failed. And then they got Jaylen Herz, and this is a guy who can run the offense that they believe is the best offense. Now, I think we are at the moment of truth where this offense has been exposed. And I think this offense it's done. The NFL caught up with it. So now they're at a crossroads. They can go two ways. You stay with this offense, stubbornly stick to it, and just add wrinkles to it, or you change course. What I would hope the Philadelphia Eagles will do at this point is to change course. I would go look for a guy like, if I'm not going to go with the route of Bill Belichick, who's just going to bring stability and bring his own thing and handle it, where we just sit back and not worry about it. If you're not going to do that, which I think is option number one, the second thing I would do is I would go after like an Eric Bieniemy. Like if I'm going to keep Nick Sirianni, I'm going to hire Eric Bieniemy, a guy like that. Why? Because this allows me to put Nick Sirianni on a very short leash. I can have him sitting there as just the guy that's consulting with Eric Bieniemy. Okay? And the moment things go a little bit wrong or there's some friction or whatever, I can fire Nick Sirianni because he's going to be on a short leash, and I can make Eric Bieniemy the head coach. Or I can go the other route of just simply hiring Eric Bieniemy as my head coach, get rid of Nick. And I can keep Brian Johnson on unless he gets another job as like a quarterback's coach because he and Jalen work well. I think you got to move and possibly go back to our roots, which is the West Coast offense. I think that's the move. But the West Coast offense that's more updated with the wrinkles that like an Andy Reid has added or Kyle Shanahan has added or the guy that's in, I keep forgetting his name, the guy that's in Miami has added. You gotta go with those new wrinkles. You have to. I truly believe that. And then on defense, you got to bring in I want a guy that I know is going to handle the job. That's me personally, which is like a Rex Ryan. Or I'll grab one of these guys that are like, that knows the system, that a Robert Saleh knows, or that D'Amico Ryans knows. One of those types of guys that runs that system. I would just completely abandon the Fangio system. Or I would go with a Rex Ryan. An innovative guy who's going to get the job done. And then you keep the offensive coach away from it. Nick Sirianni should have nothing to do with the defense. I think that's the way moving forward. All right? But we'll see today. If they keep this guy, then I know that behind it was probably the top brass running everything anyway, so they don't feel like they're going to hold him accountable. Because the only thing he's held accountable for is following their directives. If they fire him, then I know that he had more power than I initially thought. And they realized, okay, we gave you the power and you failed. You have to be held accountable. So we'll see what happens with that. The other thing is with A.J. Brown here. I really wish some of you would stop with the nonsense. That A.J. Brown is going to be traded or needs to be traded and all that kind of stuff. Marcus Hayes is not a reliable person to go to for anything like that. A.J. Brown is one of those type of wide receivers. He's very vocal or whatever. What are you going to do? You're going to get a bunch of guys, man, that you're going to trade talent for a guy that's just going to be quiet and be a yes man. Is that what you're going to do? I guess you can, but I don't believe the way A.J. Brown acts or anything like that, whatever he supposedly acts, is going to bring down the rest of the team. I don't. If you do, then you have a weak locker room. And then you have bigger problems than A.J. Brown. You really need to address those problems. If A.J. Brown, is the reason why Shaq Leonard or Byard or Bradbury and guys like that can't tackle, then wow, that's fascinating. he must have voodoo powers or something like that, right? I think I'm going to hold each guy accountable, and A.J. Brown's productive as hell, right? And that production would not be easy to duplicate or replace. Okay, so no, you keep A.J. Brown, right? You got 2 more years, 2 more years in the contract. No, you just let that ride out, because this is your window right here to have a Devontae Smith and an A.J. Brown, and that's what you do. You don't entertain no trades. You don't do none of that, and you don't do none of that dumb stuff. People talking about trading A.J. Brown, please. For what? Right, and if there's a problem with him and Nick Sirianni, get rid of Nick. Seriously. That's what you do. Nick isn't worth it. He's already shown you he's not a play caller. He can't affect the defense. Like, what is he there for, honestly? But to say yes to the higher ups and then pass down directives to the team. And that's the other reason. I don't care what Kelsey and Fletcher Cox are saying and all of that kind of stuff, endorsing him. I don't think they respect him, especially if he's not going to be a guy that has answers to problems that they run into during the season. I just don't believe it. Like, I've been around, man. I remember during Chip Kelly's time, okay? Jason Kelsey was a guy that supported Chip Kelly, okay? Jason Kelsey is a guy that's always going to support the coach. I remember back when Chip Kelly was having those issues with Riley Cooper, Mike Vick, LaShawn McCoy. Like, you had a divided locker room. You had guys who did not like Chip Kelly at all. Okay, among them Mike Vick, Shady McCoy, Deshaun Jackson. These guys didn't like him. Who you know Jason Kelsey was supporting the coach over those players, right? And now I'm not saying he's a company man, not saying he's like a coonish type of guy or anything like that, but he's a guy that has a history of just supporting, the authority figures. And that's just what he does. That's his personality. That's how he is, which is fine. Okay? So that's what I'm saying. When Jason Kelsey endorses Nick Sirianni, for me, it's more so that than it is anything else. Like, I don't think he would ever go up there and just say, Nick can't coach, right? I think those things are obvious to us. We got to look at that. We can't go based off of Jason Kelsey's opinion. And then Fletcher Cox, I don't know why he's doing that. Maybe Fletcher Cox is just old school. Maybe he likes Nick Sirianni personally. Maybe he believes in just personal accountability on account of the players. Some players think that way, that it's just them, and it's never the coach. I don't know what his reasoning is. But I think it's clear to all of us, Nick shouldn't be the guy. Because if it's all about his coordinators, then I'd rather have that coordinator be the head coach than have him be the head coach. Because that means every time we lose a coordinator, we can expect to have bad seasons. All right? If that's what you're telling me, then I don't really need this guy. But that's just me. All right, so, man, that's all I got right now. We still listening out for what was going to happen with Nick Sirianni. That's going to be the next video. So I didn't really drop anything yesterday about it because I'm just kind of waiting it out. But, just wanted to put this out there, man. See y'all later. Peace.